Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Adwaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Adwaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Agyanatmirandasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shibhanuste Devi Pranamami Haripriye Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Shankaranath Swami Namine Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pachali Visheshan Vadvas. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nagayate Girib, Yatpada Mahamande, Shri Gurum Dinataranam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Vishwaram. Hare Krishna. So today we are discussing the 12th chapter of the Adi Lila. And this is the last amongst the whole series of chapters at the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which are philosophical in nature. So after today's class, from the next week onwards, we will start chronologically with the divine pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, beginning with his appearance and going forward from there. So I want to congratulate you, those who have managed to remain attracted to the philosophy and not just stayed through, but also made an effort to understand these very sacred principles. The value that we get out of hearing the pastimes also depends on what is our conception of the personality about whom we are hearing. For example, and I'm giving an extreme example, if you're hearing about Krishna Katha, but our understanding of Krishna as we are hearing about Krishna is, oh, Krishna is a human being who was extraordinarily knowledgeable, spiritually inclined, and a very interesting personality. That is our conception. And that's how we hear the Srimad Bhagavat. Then the benefit is going to be very little. And that is why when we hear Hari Katha, it's very important that we philosophically understand the position, the Siddhantic position, the tattva that that particular position is representing. And when we hear these pastimes, having that proper understanding, then we can actually derive substantial spiritual value from that katha. And that is why our understanding, our mood, the intensity, our absorption, all these are very important parameters which determine what is the value that we will get out of the Hari Katha that we are attending. Are we simply attending? Are we actually absorbed? Are we actually relishing through our ears? What is the understanding? What is the gratitude? What is the absorption? All these questions are very important. And that is why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, understanding these very important aspects, he wanted to make it sure that the key personalities, the Panchatattva, which includes Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Adwaita Acharya, Gadadhar, and Srivas, the understanding of the Panchatattva and of each of these tattvas within the Panchatattva, their position is very, very, very clear. Why they have come is also very, very, very clear. So, as I mentioned, out of the 17 chapters of Adi Lila, the first 12 chapters are establishing this, the philosophical truths. And then the last 5 chapters of the Adi Lila are discussing the birth and the early pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And then we go into the middle pastimes in Madhya Lila and the later pastimes in the Anta Lila. So we'll be discussing chapter 12 today, which is again, as I just mentioned, the last chapter in this series. Does anybody remember what is the broad topic that we have been discussing over the last 2 chapters, 3 chapters? Anybody?
The main tree and branches.
The tree and branches of which of the trees in your courtyard?
Yeah.
Which tree are we talking about? What is the tree that we are talking about? I can't hear anybody. Some of them have unmuted, but I can't hear anything.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes, the tree of Lord Chaitanya. The tree of devotion, tree of Lord Chaitanya, where Lord Chaitanya is both the gardener as well as the tree trunk of this tree. And he is the one who's tasting and distributing the fruits. We discussed this early on in the Adi Lila. So we discussed about Lord Chaitanya, about the tree, the concept of the tree itself. Then we discussed about the principal branches of the tree and overall description of the tree and the key branches. Then we zoomed in, after going through the broad list of almost 100 over branches, we zoomed in into the Nityananda branch in the last class. Because Lord Chaitanya started by explaining, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami started by explaining that Lord Chaitanya is the main tree trunk. But the 2 main branches which come out are Nityananda and Adwaita, and they are the most prominent. There are others which are the Goswamis and so many others, but these 2 are the most prominent. So 1 chapter was devoted to Lord Nityananda's branch and the sub branches. We discussed a lot around that. The great personalities, including Janava Mataji, the Lord's consort, and also the son of Lord Nityananda. Anybody remembers his name? A very great Acharya. Anybody who heard attentively and still recollects the name of that great person? Yes?
Veerabhadra Goswami.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Good. So Veerabhadra Goswami, one of the very prominent acharyas. And whose incarnation is he? Anybody remembers? Veerabhadra Acharya. Just checking. Anybody is able to recollect? Okay. No, never mind.
Hirodata Vishnu.
Hirodakashai Vishnu. Thank you. Yes, that is correct. Okay. So we discussed about the tree. We discussed about the Nityananda branch. Today we are going to be discussing about the Adwaita and Gadadhar branches. Okay. And then we'll conclude this whole discussion and then we go to the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya from the next class onwards. Okay. So let us see what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami starts this chapter with a very interesting statement. Says, I'm going to describe the Advaita tree, but before I go into the details, I want to tell all the esteemed audience that actually amongst the followers of Advaita Acharya, there were two kinds of followers. There were true followers and false followers. What does that mean? Some people claim themselves to be followers, but because they are not following the original teachings of the Acharya, even though they call themselves followers, they are rejected as false followers. So it says somewhere real, somewhere false. I am rejecting all the false followers and I offer all my respectful obeisances the real followers of Advaita Acharya. And what was the characteristic of the real followers of Chaitanya of Lord of Advaita Acharya? That their heart and soul was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So why is mentioning like that? Now, even though this aspect is not described in any detail within this chapter, I just want to mention a few points. And this is very interesting for us to understand in terms of how careful we have to be, even if we are directly disciples of the Supreme Personality of God. Advaita Acharya is whose incarnation? Anybody?
Mahavishnu Prabhu.
Mahavishnu, Jai Ho. Such a powerful incarnation. They are combined incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. So amongst his disciples and amongst his direct children, I think he had around 10 or around that children. I don't remember. It's mentioned exactly how many. I do not remember. But not all, even though Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that the Advaita branch actually is a very big branch, and actually there were many immediate followers of Advaita, but even then, even though initially all the followers of Advaita were aligned with the teachings of Advaita Acharya, in due course, some of these followers deviated from the original teachings of Advaita, even his immediate followers. Even though it is not mentioned here in this chapter, I just want to share that Advaita Acharya himself rejected some of his followers because they deviated philosophically from the original teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Some of his followers were trying to concoct to make him as a personality higher than Lord Chaitanya. Oh, that Advaita Acharya is the bigger personality and Lord Chaitanya is the recipient of his mercy. And Advaita Acharya would become so angry. Sometimes, this kind of a mentality is there amongst disciples. Sometimes the disciples want to make their guru the greatest guru, not because they are really wanting to honor the guru, but they want to be the greatest disciple of the greatest guru, or they want to be the disciple of the greatest guru. So, sometimes immature, materialistic minded disciples are over enthusiastic to try to elevate the position of their guru in relation to others, just to actually increase their own false prestige. Not so much because it may be spiritually right. Actually, as a general principle, it is very dangerous to compare between great souls. And especially neophytes like us should avoid. In this case, Advaita Acharya himself is so advanced. Advanced in the sense, actually, I shouldn't even use the word advanced. He's directly the Lord himself. But in the Lila, to say that he is above Lord Chaitanya is actually a big offense. It is a Tattva Vibhrama. Tattva Vibhrama is one of the anarthas. Tattva Vibhrama means not understanding things the way they are. Another Tattva Vibhrama, it's not related to Chaitanya Charitamrita, is that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. This is a Tattva Vibhrama. This is not the Tattva. If you analyze scriptures properly, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Loki Mridanti Yuge. Bhagavad is very clear. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartati. I am the source of everything, Krishna says in the Gita. Matta sarvam pravartati, not something pravartate. Sarvam. Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya sarvamidam maya protam sutre maniganaiva. There is no truth clear to me. Krishna is clear, but those who try to reduce a different understanding, they deviate. And when a person deviates from the true teachings of the spiritual master and the instructions of the spiritual master, one gradually starts moving away from the parampara, starts gradually, by their offensive mentality and by not following the instructions, because not following the Guru's instructions is an offense. And when a person starts committing offenses, one starts blocking the mercy of the Guru Parampara that flows towards oneself. And these kind of offenses are more serious than offenses which are of the type of the nature of sin, because sin doesn't destroy devotion, but offenses can destroy devotion. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that many of these followers who later on got deviated because of not following the true teachings, they gradually became asar. Asar means without the true essence. They lost the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya, who was giving them the power, because ultimately the grace is coming from, even the grace that Guru is giving, whose grace is it? The Guru is distributing. Prabhupada would often say, I am a postman. I am giving Krishna's message and I am delivering his mercy to you. He never said, I am the source of the mercy. The source of the mercy is Krishna. So when somebody stops properly representing and propagating the true teachings, then Krishna stops the flow of the mercy. And how is this seen? It is seen that such people become asar. Asar means without essence. Either they fall down, or sometimes even if they don't fall down, they actually just become namesake devotees or namesake preachers. Which means they are not actually able to preach or do anything much in devotional service. Because preaching is an activity which requires direct empowerment from Krishna. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartan. Nobody can spread the holy names, chanting of the holy names of the Lord without being directly empowered by Krishna. And when disciples become asar, when they fail to receive the flow of mercy from the Lord and from the parampara, they are not able to effect change and transformation in the hearts of those whom they are preaching. This is a very important principle. We should never think that we are able to transform others because of our wonderful speech, our erudite philosophy. Only when Krishna blesses us to be the conduit of his mercy by virtue of our faithful following of the teachings of the Sampradaya, then we become instruments in the hands of Guru and Krishna to pass that mercy to others, pass that grace to others. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, by the arrangement of providence, many of the followers of Adwaita deviated in various ways, not all in the same way. In fact, it is said some of the children of Advaita Acharya also deviated from the path of pure devotional service. Can you imagine? It's not mentioned in this chapter, but I'm sharing this with you. In what exact way, we don't have to go and discuss that. Who are they? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, we don't need to discuss their names, who they were. I'm only mentioning this so that you all know that certain people individuals have been left out, even though they apparently had a direct connection, either as direct disciples or even as children of Advaita Acharya. So you can be a son of Mahavishnu, live in the same house as Mahavishnu, where Lord Chaitanya is coming, but you still have the independence to misbehave disrespect if you are not actually having the right understanding and mood. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, even though the branch of Advaita Acharya is so vast and so many sub-branches, I'm going to leave out all these asara elements out of my description. Only I'm going to focus on the real, pure devotees who are following the parampara properly. Just like rice, which is mixed with straw, we have to fan and make the straw, remove the straw so that only the paddy remains. Similarly, I'm going to blow away these unwanted elements by not mentioning them and only mention about the ones who are actually proper representatives. And then he starts mentioning who are these prominent representatives of Advaita Acharya. And the first name that comes out from the lotus lips of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was one of the sons of Adwaita Acharya, who was a very, very powerful Acharya. His name was Achyutananda. And Achyutananda was very dear to Lord Chaitanya, even from very young. Even when Lord Chaitanya, even before taking sannyas, when he would visit the house of Adwaita Acharya, and even later after sannyas also, Lord has visited the house of Adwaita Acharya. He had very special affection for this son. This son was actually one of the very younger sons of Adwaita Acharya amongst the many sons. But Lord Chaitanya would show very special affection, and this Achyutananda was so attached to Lord Chaitanya amongst all the children. Achyutananda's name comes, like the one who's really, really sold out to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was even a more ardent devotee of Lord Chaitanya even than Advaita Acharya, in one sense. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions one episode where at one time Advaita Acharya mentioning to some other devotees, he mentioned that, oh, Keshav Bharati is the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Achyutananda happened to be there. He was a young boy. I don't know what was his age at that time. But when Achyutananda heard that, he became very upset. And he told his father, who's his father? Advaita Acharya. He said, what kind of instruction is this? That you are giving this kind of instructions, if you give, it will spoil everything. You are saying Keshav Bharati is the guru of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is the original spiritual master of everybody. He is the spiritual master of all the 14 planets. How can you say that somebody else is his spiritual master? He is Adi Guru. Whatever you are saying is not supported by any revealed scripture. He would argue like that. When Advaita Acharya heard Achyutananda speaking like this, Advaita Acharya became very happy. Because of course, Advaita Acharya also knows very, very clearly. Of course, externally from a customary perspective, he had mentioned this, but that was the mood of Achyutananda, could not tolerate it. And he was very impressed. He was very happy. So in Tattva, just Achyutananda was so clear in his Tattva about the position of Lord Chaitanya. He didn't like that one statement because he knew what was the real position. Then another son of Advaita Acharya is mentioned. His name is Krishna Mishra. And it is said Lord Chaitanya always sat in the heart of Krishna Mishra. And another son, these are the few branches from Advaita's tree which were powerful and had the essence. So one is Achyutananda, another is Krishna Mishra, and the other son of Advaita is known as Sri Gopal. So these three, Achyutananda, Krishna Mishra, and Sri Gopal. Now this Sri Gopal also is a very interesting personality. Even though about Krishna Mishra not much is mentioned here, but about Sri Gopal an interesting episode is mentioned in this chapter. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that when the Lord was in Jagannath Puri, he would regularly, just before the Rath Yatra, clean the Gundicha temple. Those who have visited Jagannath Puri, they know that there is a Gundicha temple. So Jagannath goes from Shri Mandir, his main temple, to Gundicha Mandir and stays there for some time. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set the practice of thoroughly cleansing the Gundicha temple to receive Lord Jagannath into the temple. And this whole pastime represents the process of cleaning our heart to receive the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya would gather so many devotees, and later in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, these pastimes are described in great detail. We'll get into them. These are very, very sweet, very beautiful pastimes. A lot of instructive lessons in these pastimes. But here briefly it is mentioned that when Lord Chaitanya would cleanse the temple, suddenly sometimes in the middle of the cleansing, Lord Chaitanya would have kirtan. Of course, Lord Chaitanya would always be chanting even as he is cleansing, and devotees would dance. This boy, Gopal, when Lord Chaitanya was cleansing the temple, Gopal would dance in front of Lord Chaitanya with great love, and the Lord would love to see him. Chaitanya and Adwaita Acharya, they were chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and they were dancing. Seeing this beautiful dancing of Shri Gopal, and they were very, very happy. So as all of them were dancing, Adwaita, Lord Chaitanya, Shri Gopal, this boy Gopal, he went into such great ecstasy. Seeing that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and Lord Adwaita Acharya were in such ecstasy, Gopal went into such ecstasy that suddenly in the middle of the dancing, the Shri Gopal, he fainted in ecstasy. And he fell to the ground unconscious. Now this is one of the Ashta Sattvika bhavas. Sometimes one goes into a trance, falls unconscious. So there are various kind of transformations that can happen in the body of a devotee. So he fell unconscious. Advaita Acharya, because he's the father, he became suddenly very perturbed. Oh, what happened to Shri Gopal? He suddenly ran, brought him on the lap, and he began to chant the Narsingha Pranam because he saw that the boy had become unconscious. It seemed as if he had died or something. Advaita Acharya starts singing the Narsingha Pranam. But even after singing the Narsingha Pranam and various prayers, Advaita Acharya could not bring Shri Gopal back to consciousness. All the devotees who were seeing this, they were terrified and they were crying out of great sorrow because they actually thought that we have lost this little boy Gopal. Lord Chaitanya, the all-knowing Lord, he came straight to this little boy Gopal and he put his hand on the chest of Gopal and told him, "My dear Gopal, get up and chant the holy names of the Lord." As soon as he was touched by the Lord and he was instructed like this, Gopal immediately got up, fully well, fully conscious, and again beautifully began to sing and dance in great jubilation. So this Shri Gopal was also very, very extraordinary personality, very, very dear to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya. Then there are a few other sons of Advaita Acharya which are mentioned. Shri Balaram, Swarupa, and Jagadisha. So total 6, 3 of them are more prominent. Achyutananda, Krishna Mishra, and Shri Gopal. And there are 3 others, Shri Balaram, Swarupa, and Jagadisha. There are 3 or 4 sons of Advaita Acharya which have not been mentioned. So even though the names are not given and Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami has not mentioned their names, the understanding is these are the ones who somehow got deviated. And some of these deviated devotees, their lines of their teachings are still coming down and are still there in certain parts of India. Just so that you are aware. Anyway, that's a big topic. We'll not go into that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur lists all the various types of apasampradayas. And one of the apasampradayas are the Jati Goswamis or the Nityananda Vamsha and the Adwaita Vamsha. There are certain people who claim to be descendants of that line, but are not truly following the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. After mentioning about the sons of Adwaita Acharya, Krishnas Kaviraj Goswami mentions another very beautiful, very interesting name. He says Adwaita Acharya had a very confidential servant in his house. Actually, Lord Chaitanya loved everybody in Adwaita Acharya's family. Adwaita Acharya and his wife Sita Devi, they were so loving, so affectionate. They were very fatherly to Lord Chaitanya because they were at the generation of the father. Even in terms of initiation, they were one generation above. They were like god brothers of Ishwarapuri because they were all disciples of Madhavendra Puri. Nityananda Prabhu, Adwaita Acharya, Ishwarapuri. So Lord Chaitanya would always treat Adwaita Acharya with great respect. Of course, Adwaita Acharya never liked it. There are many beautiful pastimes where Adwaita Acharya would be very upset. Because Adwaita Acharya always wanted to take the position of service. Because Adwaita Acharya was very clear. I happened to be born at a, at an external level, at an age which is father-like to Lord Chaitanya. I am very clear. I am Das, he is boss. Chaitanya Das, Mui Chaitanya Das. That's how Adwaita Acharya would sing. I am the servant of Lord Chaitanya. I am the servant of Lord Chaitanya. No. I am not the servant of Lord Chaitanya. I am the servant of Lord Chaitanya. And then he would be very excited. We all want to show ourselves as great devotees, but those who are actually great devotees take pride. Pride means spiritual pride, not material pride. Pride in being the servant of the Lord and the great devotees. So anyway, I'm also mentioning this because in relation to Kamalakanta Vishwas, this particular very confidential servant, something interesting happens, and this is a good background for you to understand. So something very interesting happened. Please listen to this pastime carefully. It's a very sweet and a very interesting pastime. This Kamalakanta Vishwas, he was a very confidential servant in the house of Adwaita Acharya, and he was very close to Adwaita Acharya. He knew all the dealings of Adwaita Acharya, even in terms of his household affairs. Probably he was like a butler who was taking care of the various affairs, or a secretary or something like that. So when Kamalakanta Vishwas was in Jagannath Puri, this Adwaita Acharya stays in Shantipur, which is in Bengal, and they would come and visit Jagannath Puri every year. So when he came to Jagannath Puri, something interesting happened. On his own, this Kamalakanta Vishwas, because at that time, Adwaita Acharya was under a loan. It's not mentioned from whom he had taken a loan, but he had taken a loan, and that loan had added up to become 300 rupees of loan. Of course, now 300 rupees is very insignificant, but in that time it was a reasonably big amount. It was 500 years ago. I don't know how much it will be in today's terms. But from the perspective of a very simple Brahmana, 100 rupees is huge. Even until 50 or 100 years ago, people would get a monthly salary of 1 rupee, 2 rupee, like that. Monthly salary, I'm talking about well-placed people. That is how much the rupee was strong. And this was 500 years ago, a loan of 300 rupees. And externally, it appeared to Kamalakanta Vishwas that Adwaita Acharya is not able to repay the loan. And he was worried. Oh, Adwaita Acharya is not able to repay. He doesn't have money. From where is the money going to come? I don't know. So when he was in Jagannath Puri, he got a bit ahead of himself. And he said, let me try to help Adwaita Acharya. So what he did, he wrote a note without discussing with Adwaita Acharya, without discussing with Lord Chaitanya. He tried to be a bit smart, and he wrote a note, and through someone quietly, privately, without anybody's knowledge, he gave it to somebody that you go and give it to Maharaj Pratap Rudra, the emperor of Orissa, who was ruling in from Jagannath Puri. Nobody knew about this note or what was being done. But somehow, when we say somehow, that means by the Lord's arrangement. Because actually there is no somehow. Everything happens by the Lord's plan. But he says somehow the note reached the hands of Lord Chaitanya. So the note said things. When Lord Chaitanya read that note, the note said two things. The note told Maharaj Pratap Rudra, Adwaita Acharya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And after having mentioned that, he says, oh, he has a loan of 300 rupees. Oh, king, can you help to settle the loan? Because he is the incarnation of the Lord, you must help him to settle the loan. Quite funny, right? Somebody is the Supreme Lord. Why would you go to a king to settle a loan for the Supreme Lord? So Lord Chaitanya became very upset when he read that note. Even though externally, of course, the Lord continued to be effulgent, but he was a bit, what is this? So he was smiling and he spoke. He said, what is this Kamalakanta Vishwas doing? He is establishing Adwaita Acharya as the Supreme Lord, and that is perfectly okay because we all know that he is the Lord himself. He is Mahavishnu. But look at him, what he has done. He has made out the Supreme Lord to be like a poverty-stricken beggar. He is struggling to sort out his loan of 300 rupees, and he's gone to a mundane king to try to settle the debt. He is trying to serve him, but actually, is he honoring him or is he disrespecting him? So externally, he became very upset. I will punish him, Lord Chaitanya said. Correct him, I am going to punish him. And the Lord had a personal servant by the name of Govinda. Lord Chaitanya told Govinda that from this onwards, that Bauliya, that Kamalakanta Vishwas is not allowed to come here in my association. So what was the punishment? Cannot meet Lord Chaitanya anymore. Banned. Banned from the association of Lord Chaitanya. The news reached Kamalakanta Vishwas. He became very upset. Because in his heart, even though he had made a mistake, in his heart he thought, I was trying to help. I was trying to serve. See, you see, sometimes even though our intention is good, if you don't understand Tattva properly, rather than achieving a positive effect, we do something which is very foolish. Because the Lord doesn't need this. So when Adwaita Acharya saw that Kamalakanta Vishwas is very sad and upset because of being punished like this, Adwaita Acharya told him, Kamalakanta Vishwas, why are you sad? You must be happy. And Vishwas is saying, what is there to be happy in this? I have been chastised by Lord Chaitanya. He says, yes, that is exactly what I am saying. You have been chastised by Lord Chaitanya. You are so fortunate. You see, I am hankering to be chastised by Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya is not chastising me. Why he is saying like that? Does he enjoy being chastised? He says, no. When somebody chastises somebody, that means he considers him as his servant. But Lord Chaitanya never corrects me or chastises me because he treats me as a superior, as an elder. But you are so fortunate that Lord Chaitanya has punished you. See, the understanding is when somebody punishes you, he considers you as his own. We don't go and punish and correct strangers, right? When we correct and punish somebody, we are actually, in one sense, I'm talking about those who are, no, I'm not talking about evil-minded, envious people, but I'm talking about sane people. When they correct somebody, they only correct those who are. You just go around on the street correcting, hey, you're not doing something right, you're not doing. You'll only correct your children, those who are your close friends, those whom you are comfortable. And according to culture, whom can you correct? Only your subordinates. According to Vedic etiquette, you cannot correct your superiors or your equal. So if somebody is correcting somebody, that means he's accepting you as under him. Isn't that great? You receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. I have not got, I'm your boss. You're a servant in my home, but he is not recognizing me as his servant, but you got recognized. This is so nice. So he's consoling Kamalakanta Vishwas by telling him like this. And this is a very interesting lesson in this. What this means is sometimes, when senior devotees correct us or chastise us, sometimes we become very morose. Oh, my Guru is glorifying everybody, even the new people he is glorifying. Those who are not even chanting, he is glorifying, but me, I am doing so much service, but he chastised me. Sometimes we think like that. But we must understand from what has just been described, that when the Guru is chastising or correcting us, it means he's actually giving us his mercy. He considers us as his own. That's why he's correcting. And the same with Krishna. Krishna intervenes and corrects only his devotees who are trying to surrender to him. The other vast population who are not his devotees, who are either atheists or just materialistic followers of religion, Krishna lets the material nature and the law of karma take its course. He doesn't intervene. This material nature will punish them according to the laws in due course. But when it comes to his devotees, Krishna is very eager to intervene. Why he wants to intervene? Because he doesn't want to let the devotee go astray. Correct? If you make a mistake and the punishment is going to come much later, there is a risk that you will continue to commit that mistake. So Krishna doesn't want his devotees to go astray. So sometimes very quickly he will intervene to correct his devotees. And that kind of an intervention or punishment is actually the Lord's affection. It should not be seen as punishment. So this is the principle. So Adwaita Acharya was trying to make Kamalakanta Vishwas understand it's actually the Lord's mercy. And then to explain this, he's telling Kamalakanta Vishwas, you know what happened? Actually, I am always treated by Lord Chaitanya as the superior. One day I was so excited, I was so determined to be chastised by him, so that when he chastises me, he accepts me as his servant. That one day I deliberately sat on the Vyasasana and started giving a class on Yoga Vashishta. And in that class on Yoga Vashishta, I started speaking that the highest attainment is mukti, that we should merge into God and become God. So I started teaching all kinds of teachings of impersonalism, which are actually against the principles of devotion. Why I did that? I deliberately did that so that Lord Chaitanya hears. And when he hears, and he heard, he became so angry that he came and chastised me. Because I just wanted the chastisement. And when he was chastised by the Lord, though it's not mentioned here, but he was very, very happy. And then he told Lord Chaitanya, oh, now where is your respect? You are saying, I'm like your Guru, I'm like your, now you are chastising me. And then Lord Chaitanya suddenly became embarrassed because he understood that he has been tricked by Adwaita Acharya into accepting Adwaita Acharya as his servant. So these were some affectionate dealings. So he's telling, see, I deliberately made a mistake so that I get chastised, because I want chastisement of the Lord, because that's a form of the Lord's affection. So why you are becoming upset? Similar punishment was once given to Mukunda. Similar punishment was once given to Sachi Devi. I'm not going to go into these pastimes. These pastimes will be covered later. Anyway, I don't want to go into that. Otherwise, we cannot complete the chapter. We're only halfway. I have these pastimes in my mind. They're not mentioned in this chapter, but I'll not go into that right now. Sachi Devi was punished. Sri Mukunda was punished like this. You should be happy. The Lord's mother was punished. I am Mahavishnu. I am punished. I am so happy. Why are you becoming sad? So after he pacified and Kamalakanta Vishwas, was a bit pacified, Adwaita Acharya went and met Lord Chaitanya. And he complained to Lord Chaitanya, what is this? You are giving so much mercy to Kamalakanta Vishwas, you are not giving to me. You are giving to my the servant in my home, but you are not giving to me. You have given him such great blessings that you never gave to me. What offense have I committed that you are not giving such blessings to me? So when Adwaita Acharya spoke like this, and then he said one more statement. He said, actually, after he said this, Lord Chaitanya actually immediately started laughing. And then he asked the devotees, call Kamalakanta Vishwas, call him. Call him back. So when and then he came. And Adwaita Acharya said, oh, why you called this man back and allowed him to see you? So he has cheated me in this way. So anyway, there were very beautiful pastimes like this. And Lord Chaitanya was very satisfied because he could understand the heart of all. The Lord understands Adwaita Acharya's heart. The Lord understands Kamalakanta Vishwas' heart. Of course, Kamalakanta Vishwas, even though he made a mistake, it got corrected through this pastime. His intention wasn't bad. Because he did not properly understand the position of Adwaita Acharya, he made this mistake. So he was corrected. So Lord Chaitanya, when Kamalakanta Vishwas came back, he told him, Kamalakanta Vishwas, you are a Bauliya, a person who doesn't know things as they are. Why did you act in such a way? Why you invaded the privacy of Adwaita Acharya and you affected his religious principle by portraying him as a beggar to the king? Adwaita Acharya is like my guru. And great personalities never go to kings and rich people and beg for money. Because if a spiritual master, Lord Chaitanya says, accepts money or grains from a materialistic person, his mind becomes polluted. Very interesting point, Lord Chaitanya. That we should be careful from whom we receive charity. If a great devotee receives charity from materialistic people, the influence of the materialistic people, their karma influences him. And when one's mind becomes polluted by receiving money from materialistic people, for that devotee, for that guru to remember Krishna becomes very difficult. And when remembrance of Krishna becomes impaired, hampered, one's life is wasted. And one eventually becomes unpopular in the eyes of the people in general because his fame is destroyed, his dharma is destroyed. And that is why a Vaishnava, especially one who has taken initiation in a proper parampara, must be very careful to not act like this. One should understand this principle. So don't go and do things like this. Go to a materialistic king. Actually, Maharaj Prataprudra is not a materialistic person. He's actually a great devotee in the heart. But the principle is, don't go to rich people. Paisa do, paisa do. Don't go behind. Because when we become indiscriminate in receiving money and donations from people, there is a strong tendency that there's a strong possibility that if we are not careful, our consciousness may get polluted. See, we must always understand when we receive favor from someone, we become obliged to them. And when we become obliged to them, our behavior, our words cannot actually speak the truth. Immediately a guru's or a brahmana's position becomes compromised. And that is why Shastras recommend that the brahmana never takes up a job. Why? So that the brahmana can always speak the truth. So anyway, this is a very vast topic, but just so that we all recognize, because this principle applies to all of us also. We must be careful to not become obliged favors of materialistic people. We have to be careful. This is the point. And especially more so for a guru to not take donations. This is what Chaitanya Charitamrita says. I'm just reporting. Please don't hold me responsible for this statement. Oh Prabhu, why he did like this? Why? Don't ask me such questions. You go and ask them. But this is the principle. A devotee has to be very, very advanced to be able to engage the donations from sinful people properly. If a person is not sufficiently pure, one will get implicated by the donations of sinful people. So one has to be very careful. It's not an easy thing to digest. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says many beautiful things where our lessons are there from this pastime, and there are deep understandings of all these statements and interactions, but I don't want to make the book very voluminous. That's why I'm not going to go into a detailed analysis of that conversation. And he moves on to the next topic. He says, after having described all these branches, I want to describe the fifth branch. The fifth branch of Adwaita tree is Yadunandana Acharya. This Acharya, Yadunandana Acharya, also had many, many branches and sub-branches. And this Yadunandana Acharya was a student of the great devotee Vasudeva Datta. Now, Vasudeva Datta is a very, very great person. He's an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. Very amazing. So we'll discuss his pastimes later in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then he goes on to mention, so after mentioning the prominent associates and telling some pastimes about them, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami goes on to quickly describe the other acharyas, the other great devotees who are sub-branches under the Advaita tree. So I'm going to quickly recite their names. It's a short of time. Bhagavan Acharya, Vishnudas Acharya, Chakrapani Acharya, Ananta Acharya, Nandini, Kamadeva, Chaitanya Das, Durlabha Vishwas, Vanmali Das, Jagannath Kara, Bhavanata Kara, Hridayananda Sena, Bholanath Das, Yadav Das, Vijay Das, Janardhan Das, Ananta Das, Kanu Pandit, Narayan Das, Srivatsa Pandit, Haridas Brahmachari, Purushottam Brahmachari, Krishna Das, Purushottam Pandit, Raghunath, Vanamali Kavichandra, Vaidyanath, Lokanath Pandit, Murari Pandit, Sri Hari Charan, Madhava Pandit, Vijay Pandit, and Sri Ram Pandit are considered also very special branches. So these names are described. Then he says that whatever water Lord Chaitanya put into the branch of Advaita Acharya, Advaita would distribute and nourish all these various sub-branches of great devotees, and all beautiful fruits and flowers grew over all these branches. But unfortunately, he again mentions, after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya, some of these branches for unfortunate reasons deviated from the path because they did not accept the original trunk, which is Lord Chaitanya. Remember I mentioned that vitalized the tree. They tried to give a more important position to Advaita Acharya. And thus, because they became ungrateful, the original trunk, which is Lord Chaitanya, became angry with them. He withdrew the mercy. That is why they became asara. Just like a dry wood, which has been sucked out of all essence, they became dry in their devotion. That is why they could not effect any significant transformation in the lives of the conditioned souls. And that is why he reminds everybody, one should always be careful that one never deviates from the instructions of the spiritual master. So many smaller points are mentioned, but I'm going to move ahead. So he says, again, he concludes this section by saying that I have briefly described followers. Of course, the main three he mentions again, the main three are Achyutananda, Krishna Mishra, and Sri Gopal. And, they are all very great devotees. And I cannot describe all of them because, so many of them. I've just given a glimpse. After mentioning this, after covering the branches of the Adwaita tree, he says, I also want to briefly mention the branches of the Gadadhar tree. Gadadhar Pandit, who is the incarnation of Srimati Radharani, right? Panchatattva. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Adwaita, Gadadhara, and Shrivas. So Shri Gadadhara. So very quickly, we'll just take 5 minutes because not much. It's mainly a list of names. So for our purification, we'll recite them. Not many pastimes are mentioned here. So he mentions various names of Gadadhar Pandit's associates. Gadadhar Pandit was a very close associate of Lord Chaitanya from Lord's very early age. And Gadadhar Pandit is famous for studying and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And when Lord Chaitanya came to Jagannath Puri, Gadadhar Pandit also came to Jagannath Puri and took Kshetra Sannyas. He was amongst the few devotees who relocated permanently. And he never left Jagannath Puri for the rest of the period of his pastimes. And there are many, many beautiful interactions between Lord Chaitanya and Gadadhar Pandit. We will cover them over the course of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there are many descendants, spiritual descendants of Gadadhar Pandit. Of course, Gadadhar Pandit was a sannyasi, so he doesn't have children. But his descendants here are referred to his disciples. So the chief branches of Gadadhar Pandit were Sri Dhruvananda, Sridhara Brahmachari, Haridas Brahmachari, Raghunath Bhagwat Acharya, Ananta Acharya, Chavi Datta, Nayana Mishra, Ganga Mantri, Mamu Thakur, Kantha Bharana, Bhugarbha Goswami, very interesting personality. His samadhi is there in one of the Goswami temples. I believe it is in the same temple as, I think Bhugarbha Goswami samadhi is in Radha Damodar temple. Bhagwata Das, they went to Vrindavan and they established, they spent their life there. Vaninath Brahmachari, Vallabh Chaitanya Das, Srinath Chakravarti, Uddhav, Jita Mitra, Jagannath Das, Sri Hari Acharya, Sadi Puriya Gopal, Krishnadas Brahmachari, Pushpa Gopal, Sri Harsha, Raghu Mishra, Lakshminath Pandit, Bangavati Chaitanya Das, Raghunath, Amoga Pandit, Hasti Gopal, Chaitanya Vallabh, Yadu Ganguli, Mangala Vaishnava, Shivananda Chakravarti, who always lived in Vrindavan, is considered an important branch. So he says these are the important branches of Gadadhar Pandit. There are many I have not mentioned. These are all great devotees. And then he says one thing, why I am mentioning all these names to you, even though I'm not telling stories about each of them. Because simply, this Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, simply by remembering the names of all these branches and sub-branches of the tree trunks that I have described, one can attain freedom from the entanglement of material existence. Simply by remembering the names of all these Vaishnavas, one can attain the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Indeed, simply by remembering their names, one achieves the fulfillment of all desires. So he's telling, don't just think this is a list of names, what I have to do with these names. The names of great devotees also carry special potency when they are understood in the context of these pastimes. And that is why, following in the footsteps of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, we are trying to recite these names so that we can hear and get purified. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami concludes this chapter by saying, I offer my respectful obeisances to all these devotees, and I'm also offering obeisances again to Lord Chaitanya, who is the original trunk of this tree. Now that I've described all these branches and sub-branches, I want to go back to describing the pastimes of the gardener, the main trunk, because we haven't even started that. Now I will start describing Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in a chronological order, beginning with his appearance. Actually, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are innumerable, unlimited. It's like an immeasurable ocean, immeasurable in size, immeasurable in depth. You can measure the dimensions of this ocean. And I am not even qualified to take a dip in this ocean. But this ocean, the mellow of this ocean is so sweet and I'm feeling so attracted. I'm just standing on the shore of the ocean, trying to take one drop from the ocean and taste it. And that one drop is so wonderful, it's amazing. That is. So we have to understand, even when the Lord appears, we cannot expect that all pastimes, everything that the Lord performed is. The Lord in one moment performs 1 billion pastimes. Because the Lord is interacting with practically everybody around, we will not even know what is happening. Nobody knows other than the Lord. There are so many things happening when Lord Krishna appears, when Lord Chaitanya appears, when they are performing pastimes. Some prominent pastimes are captured by the great souls. But innumerable details are there and innumerable more stories are there, which we may not know. So he's saying that, I'm just taking one drop. So let us start discussing these pastimes. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, next chapter onwards, I'm starting chronologically the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, praying at the lotus feet of Roop and Raghunath, Sri Roop and Sri Raghunath, and always desiring their mercy. I, Krishnadas Kaviraj, narrate the Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their. That is how we conclude this chapter. Okay. Thank you very much for patiently listening to this list of names. So I'm going to stop here. If there is any question or comments, then ask. And again, thank you for those who survived the 12 chapters. Again, I'm mentioning. So appreciation to you that you have managed to. Krishna appreciates this. Krishna appreciates when we hear about him, even when we are not feeling taste. When we enjoy doing something and we do it, it's good, but then that's not really showing our commitment. When we do not have the mood or are unable to appreciate the taste, but we still do because we are convinced this is the right thing to do, that is where our commitment is seen. So at our stage of devotion, our love is seen by how committed we are to hearing about Krishna, how committed we are to continue to chant his names, to serve him, to serve his devotees, to follow the principles of devotion, whether we like it or we don't like it. That is the measure of love. Just some spurious feelings, some sentiments for Krishna, without having this kind of a commitment, Krishna doesn't take it seriously. Guru doesn't take it seriously. Okay, so any questions, any comments? Great. Thank you then. So we will conclude here. So from the next Wednesday, when we start discussing, we will discuss from the pastimes of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. And so going forward, of course, there will be some philosophy here and there, but most of it is going to be sequential pastime. So it will be, I shouldn't say more relishable, because technically philosophy or pastime, both are relishable, but at least it is easier for conditioned souls like us to appreciate. Because actually, technically, I cannot say it is more relishable. Because actually, tattva for purified souls is also very, very relishable. So thank you very much. I again want to mention very quickly, for those devotees who are in Malaysia, we have a Damodar program on Sunday. And we have posted in the WhatsApp group. It's in the Pines Condo Clubhouse Hall, evening 6 to 8 p.m. So those who are here are, please treat it as a personal invitation. It's not possible to call each and every one of you individually, but all of you and everybody in the group are invited. Please come, join us. We'll also have dinner prasad together. It's a good opportunity to meet each other also. Not just do Damodar, of course, we are all doing Damodar throughout the month. I think we can sing Damodar. We are at 10:07, right? So, yeah, so please join us, and then we will also be having dinner together. So it's a nice spiritual satsang, one of those few opportunities that we have, at least for those who are in Malaysia, to come together physically as well and spend some time with each other. So I encourage all of you, especially Malaysia. Or others, if you want to fly in, you are welcome. Yeah, we are not able to sponsor your tickets, unfortunately. So yeah, so thank you. So we will, and if you have any particular friends or acquaintance who strongly feel you want to invite them to this program, let me know, and we will try to. We'll roughly, we think we'll roughly have around 100 attendees for this program, and we have booked a hall, nice poolside hall, air-conditioned poolside hall, and we have catered for prasadam from devotees. So it's going to be a nice festival, enjoyable festival. Okay, so with that, I'm going to start the Damodar Ashtak recitation. Just change my virtual background so we can meditate on Damodar nice. Beautiful. Namam Ishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yashodabhiyolukhaladavamanam Param Rishtamatyanta Dritya Gopya Rudantam Muhurnetram Yugmam Rijantam Karam Bhoja Yugmena Satanka Netram Muhushwasakam Patri Rekhanka Kantha Sita Graivam Damodaram Bhaktivadham Iti Driksvalila Bhirananda Kunde Swagosham Nimajantam Akhyapayantam Tadiyeshi Tadneshu Bhaktairjitatvam Punaha Prematastam Shatavritti Vande Varam Deva Moksham Na Moksham Vadimva Nachanyam Vrineham Varishadapiha Idam Teva Purnatha Gopala Balam Sada me manasya avirastam pimanyai Idam te mukham bhojam atyanta nilai Vritam kuntalai snigdha raktaischa gopya Muhuschumbitam bimba raktadharam me Manasya avirastam malam lakshalabhai Namo Devah Damodar Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prabho Dukha Jalabdhi Magnam Kripa Drishti Vrishtyati Dinam Bhatanu Trihane Shamamagyam Medhyakshi Drishya Veratmajau Bada Murtyai Vayadvat Vayamuchitau bhakti bhajau kritau cha Tatha prema bhaktim swakamya prayacha Namokshe graho me sri damodareha Namaste studamne suraddipti dhamne Vadiyodharaya tha vishwasya dhamne Namo Radhikayai Twadiyai Priyayai Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tuvyam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe. Shri Shri Radha Damodar Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Kartik Maas ki jai. So the Purnimanta Kartik month goes on up to 8th of November, for your information. Those who are following the Amavasya calendar starting from Diwali, it will go on up to I think 23rd of November or something like that. So if you want to continue to offer lamp up to that day is also fine. But if you want to go up to only 8th is also okay. Please suit yourself. Of course, I will continue to offer up to 23rd. So if you can continue, it is wonderful. Okay, so thank you so much for patiently listening. And whoever are here, at least some I can see. Many are not from Malaysia, but whoever is here, for whosoever it is possible, we encourage you to join us. Others, yes, we seek your good wishes and blessings so we can all serve the Lord nicely. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you. Shraddha ji, nice to see you. And
Thank you.
your offering of your lamp also we could see. I think Siniji also offered. Some of you offered, I could see here. Thank you. Very nice to see in your own homes being offered. So I will see you on Saturday evening. We will continue our Bhagavatam discussion.